Did you see the official Konami Genesis recap? Let's do that, then we'll do Freaks. How's that sound? Is it on the blog? Oh, by the way, also, the other thing I did this week was we got all the archetypes and most of the decks for every Genesis pod that fired. Yeah. They have it labeled as giant card, but that'll change when Ren gets up. Names will go up too. We have almost all the names, but we have like, this is the Vanquish Soul deck. This is the Super Quant deck. This one will get added later. This is me. This was Jared Centimore, who ended up winning the giant card, who didn't reveal the list because he was like, I don't want people to know before I win giant card. Noel won one. This Pearly Naturia deck is funny. Dolce Vernisylph, this Doomsy Onomat deck got my ass. Wow, it's still the same decks. Yup. But, you know, it was 8 different decks. I can't be that mad. All right, let's do the... let's look at what they have to say about Genesys. Genesys at YCS Bologna. This is kind of frustrating. You know, YCS Bologna was a whole week ago, right? Get typing quicker. I'm just kidding though. Yeah, let's scooch it over a little bit. All right, so the Bologna qualifiers are run differently. Qualifiers are held Friday before the event began, so strong duelists that would be competing in main event had a chance to qualify and have a tournament to fall back on Sunday if they failed to make it through day 1. That's kind of cool. The format for invitational qualifiers was shifted into win 3 of 4 instead of win 3. I like that a lot. Could have resulted in an invitational with 64 players, but it was done to take into account the possibility of many qualifiers not showing up Sunday. Okay, differences in deck selection. Being able to lose one and qualify does change that equation a little bit. 4 decks that had never qualified before, Noble Knight, Unchained Archfiend, Heraldic Beast, and Lunalight, made the field in Bologna. I was going to say real quick, Lunalight is already really good, and they say that in the next sentence. Lunalight is a deck that's specifically been considered strong and difficult once it gets going, but it's struggled mightily in straight single elimination events. I don't believe that at all. Under the modified qualifier rules, 4 Lunalight decks made it in. 3 of them were one and dones in the Invitational, but the 4th won. Yeah, all right. Something to think about as we move forward is that the current Invitational format is going to be retired and replaced with the same format used in YCS events as Genesys moves out of early access and plugged into standard tournament systems. Okay. Any extreme outliers? Artmage, which got shit on. Instead, 2 decks reached outlier status with more than double the showing of Lunalight in the Invitational, Dracotail and Radiant Typhoon Runic. Okay, I'm really happy that these 2 decks are on their radar, because these are the 2 decks I am the most frustrated about in the format. And the thing that has allowed Radiant Typhoon to kind of skate under the radar is that there are 2 different Radiant Typhoon decks that play a little differently. There's Radiant Typhoon, the deck, and there's Radiant Typhoon Runic. And Radiant Typhoon is also playable in a large manner of like 3 slop piles as well. So we'll see. Dracotail operates as a high-power Shadow style deck, and in some cases even includes Shadows. Yeah, I mean, it's functionally just the TCG deck. It's incredible. They explain how Dracotail works. Unlike the standard Radiant Typhoon decks, Runic has an excess of removal, draw, and search, and almost all the extra cards are quick plays that also attack the opponent's main deck. It's often a deck that never has to attack at all. We think it's fine to have a deck in the format that's analogous to the old Needleworm deck-out decks, but this combination where you get to play 2 entire decks that are individually good enough to win on their own at the same time has become so widespread that neither main engine will be completely free after the next update. Well, I would say that I don't feel Runic needs individual point hits, but certainly Radiant Typhoon needs excessive point hits. You know, it won another giant card. You know, it won another pod this past weekend. So I am glad to see both of those for sure. Any extreme usage outliers? In Pittsburgh, there was only 1 card used in 30% more of all decks. Droll and Lock Bird. Oh. 63% of all possible copies of Droll and Lockbird were played. That's crazy, because I imagine it includes decks that are at 100, right? This may sound low if you're used to looking at Master Duel or Advanced, but, well, not really. I mean, but for Genesys, where there's a cost to including it, that's a ton. Speaking just as one person on the team, I'd consider anything over 33 as a generic to be an outlier and take a look into what whether it's that way because of specifically countering a deck trend or it's outperforming its salary. For Droll, the answer is both. Ugh, man. Which makes the Bologna number shocking. Only 35% of the maximum number were registered. Well, I would still say probably that's enough to warrant an additional hit. Which advanced format cards were popular? Only 4. 2 players decided to use Pot of Greed and Mirage of Nightmare. 1 played Heavy Storm and 1 ran Rongo-Nimiad. I hope that means we will annihilate Rongo-Nimiad. We are planning to line it up with the release of Phantom Revenge for the next update, as there are some cards in that set that proactively attack the main and extra deck. We're going to take the NA release of Frey as an opportunity to take some extra time for this update and also prepare a what to expect. We're aiming for the 15th, but we'll let you know on the what to expect if that changes. That's a perfect time. Great. Fantastic. I hope that they are able to integrate the remote duel stuff. Here's what I'll say about Genesys as a close to my thoughts about the format. At present, it feels like TCG with a different slew of top decks, right? And this is a problem we had in Trinity format when we were first building it as well. It is not sufficient for the format to just feel like TCG with another slew of top decks, because that could be accomplished by a specifically targeted ban list, right? If we want Genesys to feel like something else, it has to have a different style of gameplay. And right now, it doesn't. It feels like the Onomat deck just goes first and tries to wombo combo into a card that wins the game immediately. It feels like if you're going second, you have a saving grace and a hand trap that ends your opponent's turn, but otherwise you are totally boned. I will say it is certainly the case that there are more decks that seem playable than there are in the TCG at present, but I would be really frustrated if the changes to the Genesys format did not include a huge change to Droll and Lockbird, substantial hits to Radiant Typhoon and Draco Tail and Onomat, and I would also like to see Rongo-Nimiad moved all the way up to a hundo. I think there are some other decks that are like ubiquitous but not a problem. I don't have an issue with Archmage being very popular, but also like very beatable. This Vanquish Soul deck is probably fine where it is at present. And one final thing I think should be considered is the Herald hand traps feel really, really strong for 0 points. It is my opinion that if you are not playing one of the like 4 top decks in the format, you should be playing a deck with enough fairies to facilitate a Herald package. And this week that was like Pearly, Madolche, the Super Quant deck had them. Like a lot of people were like, sure, I'm just going to play Herald of Orange Light. Like that, those Herald of Orange and Green feel a little strong. All right, bada bing. New Genesys PogChamp, new Genesys PogChamp. What do you expect in the December points update? Okay, so yesterday, 2 days ago, they released a post yesterday, the 8th, they released a post about what they're looking at in the upcoming list. And then the 9th, which is now yesterday, they made a second one that says, here's what you should expect. Okay. As we mentioned in the Bologna recap, the next points update is scheduled for next week and will take Phantom Revenge into account, even though its official launch date was moved to the 19th for North America. The next update will be based on results and deck lists received from tournaments, starting at those with YCS Pittsburgh. Thank you to everyone who's been submitting deck lists. Keep them coming. Just everyone knows we give strongest weight to all complete submission from tournaments where we see all the deck lists, since that's the most accurate way to compile complete census data on who's playing what and how often. But all the information is useful as we keep looking into what the heck everyone is building. This is, I imagine, why they required you to submit a deck list for the Genesys pods at the remote YCS. Here's the adjustments. Severe performance outliers. This includes cards both at a deck level and an individual level. For instance, Draco Tail's performance since October puts it in line for increases. Good. This deck should be hit for 2 reasons. Firstly, because it's one of the top decks in the format, and secondly, because it's a fucking TCG deck. Like, no, if I want to play an alt format, I would like to play with cards that aren't currently crazy good in the TCG. And Droll and Lockbird's performance as an individual card puts it in line for an increase as well, more so in North America than in Europe, which is interesting. Yes, we all know North American duelists are much better than those in Europe. You don't have to hammer it in here. As always, this is the most important criteria and the fundamental principle of Genesys. Cards seeing excessive play put their costs up, other cards come down, while keeping OTKs boxed out. Oh yeah, we're really doing a great job at that. Everything listed below is just part of our initial ongoing early access tuning. Once we exit early access, it will be a bit different, and we'll be talking a lot about long-term Genesys plans soon, and the plans are pretty extensive. I like hearing that. To put it another way, everything listed below is going to be a performance outlier unless we hit it now. That's what early access is all about. On to the categories. First, cards that attack the deck or extra deck. This includes Hekahan's Gygus, Hekahan's Xeno, and 2 of the cool tunes. Okay. I mean, we need fewer cash tier unicorns for sure. Cards that multiply excessively. Yeah, just point Dota Warrior at 25. All right, we clearly don't need to be having this card. Cards that insulate turn 1 combos. In Pittsburgh, players started gravitating en masse towards cards like Crossout and Rafflesia to help force through turn 1 combos, even if your opponent has a way to respond. The price on these kinds of cards at the moment is a bit too much of a bargain for how much you stand to gain. The counters to the counters should be more expensive than the counters themselves. We might need to go more into this in another article. I get it. Towers monsters. We're going to crank up the cost of monsters like Liger Dancer and Mech King Great Magnus so that you have fewer points to give them generic backup. Readjusting extra deck monsters to get you another card, separate from ones that cheat out an extra deck monster. These are the ones that get you another card in some way. Gaga Gaga Girl and Wind Up Carriers and Mady are cards in this category. Huh. Surely we're not going to point Zen Meity. Themes that weren't tempting. Last time we reduced the points on themes that were popular internally but not externally. We'll do again this time. Dragon Maid, Sword Soul, Tenyi, Snake Eyes, Ninjas, again, man, whoever was saucing them with ninjas, come to the front of the class. And maybe Scent and 6-Sam, although they're trickier. Yeah, Scent is like, you really don't want this deck to be super playable, and 6-Sam is like, oh, thank God, 6-Sam is playable, time for an FTK. Reweighing some point distributions. An example of this is the Adventurer cards, where Aramasir and Water Enchantress are 5, but Wandering Griffin is at 20. Glads and Crystron are being looked at for this also. More high-profile cases, Branded. They're swapping the Brandeds back. Fallen and Virtuous came out, and we figured out everyone would want to play it in 3s, so we balanced it by putting points on the ED monsters. From what we're hearing, Branded players would have been perfectly happy with just 1 or 2 copies of the new spell, and would have preferred the extra deck costs stay where they were, so we're going to make that correction. That's so funny. This is an example of how when we hit cards before they're out, we might guess wrong sometimes. There are several handy generic cards that no one is using at their current values that will drop. Please, Imperm. Imperm's so important. We're also figuring out how to gradually make these declines. If a card isn't being played but then drops to 0 and then everyone plays 3, then it just yo-yos back and forth. Put the Rescue Ace back. There's a sweet spot somewhere. The next update after this one will happen at the release of Burpo. There are no large-scale Genesys events between now and then, so the primary purpose of that update will be to add points to cards releasing in Burpo and adjust other cards based on the addition of Burpo. That's cool. Yeah, this is pretty much everything we expected. No real new news here. I guess I would say congratulations, Ease. You got Magnus pointed. Everything else seems pretty normal. What are you guessing on Droll? I'm expecting 33. I think it's going to be 10. I think they're going to be like 10 was good enough for Shifter. And I'll be honest, at 10, I think it will see drastically less play. You know, as much as people were like, people are going to play Shifter at 10, they really did stop playing Shifter. 15 to Droll and Ash to 7-10. I think, okay, I watched the Peeps video. I think Ash cannot be at like 0. I think that's so bad. I think it can't be at 7. I really do think Ash should not be viable in this format. I do think he's right that the Charmies are an elegant way. Like, put the Charmies to 3. It's still broken at 15. Yeah. 6 or 7.